Hello everyone, welcome to our webinar on the Regional Sports Infrastructure Fund and the 2018 Program Guidelines. My name's Celia Murphy, I'm from the Department of Premier and Cabinet. I'm here with my colleagues Karen Jones, Executive Director, and John Egan, Director from the Office of Sport.
Hi everybody and welcome to today's webinar. I'm here today to give you an overview of the Regional Sport Infrastructure Fund, to outline the recent changes to the fund and to also answer any questions that you might have. The Regional Sport Infrastructure Fund is a significant funding opportunity to support sport infrastructure and ultimately participation in regional New South Wales. The aim of today's webinar is to give everybody the opportunity to understand what we are looking for from the projects submitted for the Regional Sport Infrastructure Fund. We hope that today's session will assist organisations in preparing their applications for the fund, including the type of material required to be submitted with your expression of interest. We're also going to outline the assessment criteria used to determine successful applications and understand the broader process of the fund. It's a relatively short expression of interest process, approximately 6 weeks. So with this in mind, we understand that pulling together detailed resources can be challenging, and that as a result, some of the expressions of interest might be a bit light on. However, we don't want to discourage anyone from applying with an expression of interest in the time frame. And having a detailed application doesn't necessarily mean that you will be successful. But what we are interested in is quality projects that support and encourage sport in regional areas. So at this stage, we ask that you put your best foot forward and submit an expression of interest that clearly outlines your project, addresses the assessment criteria, and outlines the key benefits back to the sport and regional community. So today, what we'd like to talk to you about is the 28 guidelines and what's changed. So for those of you that might know, there was a 2017 version of this fund, but now it has changed, and we'll walk you through those changes today. We'll also outline the eligible applicants, our focus on hubs and regionally significant sport facilities. We'll go through the assessment criteria, how you can apply, and what can actually happen if you've previously submitted an application under the 2017 fund. We'll also go through the key dates, what funds are actually available and the total amount of funds, and what other funding opportunities might actually exist for some projects. We'll also go through our list of resources that we will make available on our website to assist you in your process. And of course, there'll be an opportunity for you to ask us any questions at the end. So what is the Regional Sport Infrastructure Fund? So the Regional Sport Infrastructure Fund is a fund of up to $100 million, and it's available to support regional sport hubs and regionally significant sport facilities. And we'll actually go through and define those terms for you later in the presentation. Basically, the objectives of the fund are to increase the number and type of regionally sporting facilities, and also to improve the standard of any existing facilities that are around. Ultimately, what we really want to do is increase participation in sport in regional New South Wales. So as I said earlier, there was a 2017 version of this fund, and I understand that many of you would have applied. However, we have now released the 2018 version, and it's now my role to explain to you what has actually changed. So first and foremost, the economic assessment criteria is no longer required. So previously there were 4 assessment criteria that you needed to go through and address in your expressions of interest. And the economic assessment criteria is no longer there. And that is because we actually found that going through the previous applications, that a lot of the projects, and really good projects, actually struggled to get a benefit cost ratio, or BCR as it's also known, greater than 1. And why is this? Well, it's because to achieve a BCR greater than 1 for social projects is always challenging, and sport is no different to that. So to make the assessment process easier, we've decided to delete that criteria. As a result, there's now a greater focus on the project's strategic alignment, affordability and deliverability, which are the remaining assessment criteria. And I'll go through those again later as well. We're also offering a clearer definition of what is a regional sport hub and what is a regional significant sport facility. And they're really the two key focus areas that we are promoting as part of the Regional Sport Infrastructure Fund. We've also now specified a funding range of $1 million to $10 million. So therefore, there is actually a cap on the maximum that the government will give you under this fund. And we've also specified the minimum co-contribution being 25%. And of course, we encourage everybody to talk to us about that co-contribution. Now, the due dates for the applications are also now specified, as the program is no longer open all the time. So you may recall previously under the 2017 fund, the program was open for a number of years. In this instance, what we have found is that we actually do want to make an impact and a difference to regional sport as quickly as we can. So therefore, there is now a time limit on the applications. And again, we appreciate that it is quite a limited time frame, being only a 6-week expression of interest process. However, we do want to see sporting facilities built quite quickly, and we want to have a great impact and a greater benefit as soon as we can. So, who are the eligible applicants? So, funding is available for all 92 regional councils, including Lord Howe Island and the unincorporated Far West. Of those, we also have not only the local government authorities, but we're also including the New South Wales state sporting organisations, incorporated community-based not-for-profit sporting organisations such as clubs. We are also including organisations that provide sport and recreation programs that benefit the community, such as your PCYCs, your YMCA and your YWCA. There's also educational organisations such as schools, TAFEs and universities, if they are in conjunction with local councils or local or state sporting organisations. And of course, there's also private enterprises are eligible. Now, to talk about our key focus area of the Regional Sport Infrastructure Fund, and that is regional sport hubs and regionally significant sport facility. Now, if you actually have a look in the middle of the slide there, you'll see a great hierarchy diagram where the regional sport hub is at the centre. And a regional sport hub is really a multi-sport facility, so we encourage multi-use. We hope that the regional sport hub will be capable of hosting national, state and regional championships. And ideally, the main site should incorporate a whole range of services, so not just health and fitness facilities, but other things might include sports science facilities, educational and training facilities, or perhaps administration for all the sports involved in the hub. Then you'll find that the next tier down is the regionally significant sport facilities. And what we see with these ones is that they're typically a single sport facility that is also capable of holding regional, state or national level competitions. We want really these facilities to drive participation outcomes, including community participation, competitions, events, and perhaps talent development. We want these regionally significant sport facilities to cover a broad catchment area, so not just the local area. And we also want them to be flexible in their use, offer high quality amenity, and provide different service levels. Then you'll see the third tier being the local facilities. And whilst this fund isn't necessarily targeting those, there are other funding opportunities for local facilities, which I'll touch on later. Moving on now to the assessment criteria. And as I introduced at the start, the economic criteria is no longer there. However, the three remaining criteria are strategic alignment, being the alignment with priorities, including the New South Wales government priorities, state and national sporting organisation priorities, and also the priorities of the local council. Then you move on to affordability, where we want to demonstrate that the actual facility itself can be appropriately funded, and not just the initial build costs, but the life cycle costs and the ongoing maintenance requirements. Again, I touch on the point that there is a co-contribution of 25% that is required now as part of the fund. The third criteria is deliverability. Again, we want to make sure that these projects can actually be built and delivered to provide maximum benefit for the community that they serve. And in this case, we want to be able to, and we want to have clearly demonstrated to us that the project can actually be delivered through appropriate project management and risk management strategies, as well as details of any partnership models that might be involved. Now, how to apply. Again, similar to the 2017 fund, applicants are encouraged to submit an expression of interest. We expect the expression of interest to be a fairly high-level technical and administrative information sheet, effectively, about the project. And details of an expression of interest, including our checklist, is available on our website. You can also submit the expression of interest using the website provided on the slides today. If you are shortlisted after the expression of interest process, you'll then be asked to submit a detailed application or a business case. Now, we've actually distinguished now what projects would be required to submit a detailed application and those projects that would be required to submit a business case. And as you can see there on the slide, for those that are under $5 million, a detailed application would apply, and for those over $5 million, a business case is required. For the previous applicants, so for those of you that have already submitted applications under the 2017 fund, we want to reassure you that your application still does exist in our system. And in fact, you have the opportunity to actually proceed now to stage 2, which means that you can actually go straight to detailed application or business case phase. This is only applicable if the project scope remains the same. There will be opportunity, though, for you to actually amend the funding request, including upping your co-contribution in order to meet the current guidelines. However, if you do want to revise the scope, we do actually encourage you to submit a new expression of interest under the new guidelines. For those of you that have submitted previous applications, you will actually be invited to attend a separate webinar on how to apply for Step 2. So moving on now to the key dates. So what are the key dates for this whole process? Now, the due dates for applications are now specified, and being the 4th of May for expressions of interest at 5 o'clock. So again, appreciate this is a short time frame. However, we are encouraged by the interest that we've already received to date, and also by the magnitude of the projects that we know are out there and needed in regional New South Wales. For those previous applicants, we do ask that you submit your detailed applications also, being Step 2 of the process, also by the 4th of May at 5 o'clock. For those of you that under the 2018 guidelines, the shortlist for the expressions of interest will actually occur during June this year. And we hope that the successful detailed applications under the 2017 guidelines will then be announced around the same time. And then detailed applications or business cases will be due by the end of August 2018. So what is the available funding? Well, I'm pleased to announce that the available funding has not changed. There is still a total of $100 million available. So successful projects under the 2017 guidelines will receive funding from this $100 million, and in fact, they could receive up to $50 million of the $100. The balance of the 100 after the 2017 applications, so at least $50 million plus, will then be available for those projects under the 2018 guidelines. Now, if you remember previously, I talked about local facilities and other funding opportunities that might exist for them. And the fund that I would draw people's attention to is the Stronger Country Communities Fund. This fund also has a component of $100 million for sporting projects. And for those, we are looking at projects that are valued between $50,000 and $1 million. So ideally, the local projects. And again, we encourage you to go to the website that's currently on our slides for further information on the Stronger Country Communities Fund. For those of you that are putting together expression of interest applications, I do encourage you to go to our website and to have a look at all the resources available to help guide you through the process. So there are the guidelines, the fact sheets, the frequently asked questions, the expression of interest checklist, project budget templates, project plan templates, and business case templates. We also obviously are doing the webinar now as an introduction, but there will also be another webinar on how to complete a business case. There are also some regional information sessions with dates and locations soon to be announced. Now, finally, for any more information, we do encourage you to go to our website to have a look. And by all means, have a look at any of our resources or feel free to contact the Office of Sport with any questions. But for now, we're happy to take any questions and I look forward to them coming through. So by all means, type away.
Thanks, Karen. So we do have a few questions to start with. Around the questions, we will avoid answering questions about specific projects on this webinar because there are a number of applicants or prospective applicants who are watching, but the Office of Sport is available to talk to you about your specific questions about your project. So Karen and John, the first question is, will all projects receive funding?
John, would you like to answer that question?
Not all projects will receive funding. We expect to receive many applications from many organisations across regional New South Wales. It will be a very competitive assessment process, and those applications that have been strongly assessed by our grant assessment panel will be recommended for funding.
The next question is there a funding cap of $1 million on the applications?
No, the funding cap is actually up to $10 million on the applications, but what we're actually asking for is the actual estimated cost of the projects themselves have to be greater than $1 million.
We've got a couple of people, Karen and John, who are interested in the 25% co-contribution. So someone has asked what counts towards the co-contribution.
So under the 2017 program, the co-contribution was calculated against the total project cost. We have changed this for the 2018 program so that the co-contribution is a percentage of the total grant amount requested. The co-contribution under the 2018 program is a financial contribution from the applicant.
Thanks, John. There's another question about 2017 applicants going through to stage 2 of the program and then the process for people who are applying new under the 2018 guidelines. Can you explain the process, the difference between those processes?
Applications that were received under the 2017 program have been offered the opportunity to proceed directly to the detailed application phase or the business case phase. And we are currently in discussions with all those applicants to ascertain whether they wish to proceed to the detailed application or the business case stage. Applicants under the 2018 program, so these are new applicants, will be required to submit their expression of interest by 5 p.m. on the 4th of May using our online grant system.
And John, I'd add to that, the reason for the difference in treatment between people who previously applied and those who are applying fresh in 2018, applicants from 2017 have obviously had applications in the waiting for a long time, and we don't want to disadvantage them further by then making them go through a full 2-stage process. So that's why we're offering them the opportunity to proceed to stage 2.
That's correct.
Okay, I've got another question here about whether it's okay to get development approval before hearing if your project application is successful.
So in response to that, I would say that by all means, it's not necessarily required at the expression of interest stage, but we would hope that if you are successful in proceeding to the detailed application or business case stage, that you are thinking about your development application and even might have actually submitted it to council, because it does actually provide greater certainty about the actual project being delivered in the long term. So yes, we would encourage that, perhaps not for expression of interest, but definitely around business case or detailed application stage.
Great. Another question here about whether it's necessary to identify which stream a project is applying under, identifying whether it's a regionally significant sport facility or a sport hub.
We require applicants to indicate which stream they're applying under. So new applicants who are using our online application form will find that they need to tick a box that says it's a regional sport hub application or a regionally significant sport application.
Next question I've got here is a request for a bit more of an explanation about the EOI and the level of detail. So how much detail should be provided given that there's a 2,000 character limit? Can you provide some suggestions about the level of detail in the application?
Yep.
At the expression of interest application, we want applicants to give us, in a very concise way, the key information that they can provide about their project. We're not looking for heaps and heaps of information. We're looking for the really relevant information that will help the grant assessment panel make an assessment of the project.
Thanks, John. I've got two questions here that I might ask you to deal with together. So the first one is there any opportunity to waive the 25% co-contribution for areas that are financially disadvantaged? And the second question is whether in-kind contributions can be used to meet that 25% co-contribution.
I can talk initially to the requirement for the 25,000 co-contribution, and my advice is that, yes, we do require the 25% co-contribution to be provided. There are circumstances where it can be demonstrated to us that there is financial hardship, where we might actually consider a reduction to that co-contribution. But ultimately, yes, we are striving for 25%. John, do you want to talk about in-kind?
Where an applicant is unable to provide a 25% co-contribution of the total grant amount requested, they can make application to the Office of Sport for consideration of financial hardship. Should that financial hardship request be approved, then we will certainly consider in-kind contributions from applicants.
Thanks, John. The next question is whether the $10 million cap is the total maximum project cost or the total maximum funding amount.
It's the total maximum funding amount. So we are expecting projects, obviously, to come in with an estimated cost of construction or delivering over that $10 million, but the maximum that the government will give you under the Regional Sport Infrastructure Fund is $10 million.
And a related question on budget, is it possible to revise the budget for the project during the application process if costs change?
Absolutely. So obviously there's the cost requirement to be submitted with the expression of interest, but we do appreciate that when you do go through the process of a detailed application or a business case, that those costs might become more refined. So therefore, yes, we would be open to those costs changing.
I've got two more questions about webinars that I might try to tackle. So the first one is, will this webinar be available after today so others can view online? The answer to that is yes. The presentation will be available on the Sports Infrastructure Fund website, and the questions will be transcribed as well so that other people can access the information. There's another question about whether there'll be a webinar on detailed applications. We can certainly endeavour to provide one when we get up to that stage of the process. Yep. We have done that for other funds and it has been very popular and great at helping people to put forward quality application.
Absolutely.
So the next question is whether all 2017 applications are going straight through to the detailed application stage.
All 2017 applicants have the opportunity to choose to proceed to the detailed application or business case stage.
How quickly would a project need to commence once the funding agreement is executed if it's successful, and when would it need to be completed by?
We would expect projects to be completed within 3 years of the signing of the funding agreement.
I've got a question. Someone's asked if we could again clarify the co-contribution requirements. Is it total project cost or the grant amount requested?
The co-contribution is 25% of the grant requested. So if the grant request is $1 million, then the co-contribution would be $250,000.
The questions are starting to slow down, so if you do have any final questions, please do send them through. So I've got one question here. For the 2017 EOI projects who have been offered the opportunity to proceed to step 2, what's the due date for those detailed applications or business cases?
2017 applicants who are opting to do the detailed application or business case must submit their applications by 5 p.m. on the 4th of May.
Thank you, John. I've got one last question. Is it possible for people to make joint applications?
We encourage joint applications, so partnerships between, say, a council and a sporting club and, say, a PCYC are strongly encouraged.
Great. So thank you, everybody. I think that concludes all of the questions that we've received for today. Any other subsequent questions that might filter through from now on, we will be able to answer further on our website. But at the moment, we do actually point you to our website for any further information. As I mentioned before, any of the resource documents that may assist you in preparing your expressions of interest. Alternatively, by all means, give us a call or send us an email on the email address that's now on your screen with any specific questions that you might have generally about the fund or any specific projects that you might be pursuing. But apart from that, thank you, Celia, thank you, John, and good afternoon, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.